Hi, it's Warren Whitlock here. This is another episode of Emerging Technology with Warren. Our goal here is to explain technology that's happening now and is coming soon. An emerging technology is one that you haven't seen much of. Most of the population is not using yet, and it's going to change everything. For instance, we used smartphones for a couple of years before it started being something that, oh, everyone's going to need one of these. We use computers, the internet. Right now, we're hearing about AI growing faster than anything before. And that's the AI that's easy to see, the chatbot, the going to a website, typing in something, and getting a response. And boy, that's growing like crazy. It's exponential. They're getting better and better. I'm guessing not everyone listening to this is using that every day, and that's okay. Today, we're going to talk about how AI is going to improve the lives of people that don't even use AI or they don't know they're using AI. So let's get started. First of all, AI is a growth engine. Economics are very simple, not the stuff in economic news that can bore you or put you to sleep talking about what the gross national product is, the gross domestic product, the per capita income. That's one we all care about, and whether or not there's inflation, et cetera, et cetera. Let's leave inflation aside for a moment because that's a monetary phenomena of having more money in the system. They print more money. It makes it so there's more money chasing the same amount of goods. That's inflation. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about real growth. And real growth, not in the number, but in the ability of things to have output, has grown about 3% a year for the history of the United States. So we're pretty good. It slowed down at periods of time down to 1%. And then, of course, a recession are the quarters where it doesn't grow. But what does that really mean? Because if you just take the gross national product, and this could be the gross global product, everybody, the GDP for the world, if you will, and it's been growing at about 3% throughout as much of recorded history. And it gets very complicated as you're trying to allow for inflation and things like that. But 3% is considered good growth. Places like China, in the years after it opened up to whatever form of capitalism they call their communists with the market, they opened up the markets and allowed people to control a little bit more. They got growth up to 10%. And so, how much of that is a technology? How much is that regulation? Hard to tell. You can spend hours, but the simple way to figure out what it means is if there is $1 million and there are 10 people in that economy, that means the per capita is 100,000. If there's 100 people in that economy, then it's 10,000. Nice thing is, if you were going to go from 10 to 100 people, the $1 million would become something much greater. So the more people working, the greater the growth is in the number. A lot of factors going into that. But we're looking at an unprecedented time. We're looking at AI. What's that going to do? What happens when the money being made keeps going up and the jobs that are needed to be able to maintain that go down? It seems like and especially when it happens to you, and it's a day that you aren't able to go to work and maintain the current pattern of things you've been doing. Boy, that's bad news. No doubt about that. That's coming and is going to happen to a lot of people. But on the other side, when we look at the positive effect, when you take what was $1 million to, I'm just going to use simple math, as simple as I can, $1 million for 10 people, being 100,000 apiece. If you then get $10 million to 10 people, now it's $1 million each. In other words, you can change it in more than one way. If everybody's making more money, there's some problems with the equity of people who have most of the money getting more of the increase than people that don't have any money. Different discussion. Happy to cover that if you want. Let me know. But it's, what we miss when we look at those things is what really happens over time. Not about whether you have a job this week or next, but how much better your life's going to be in 10 or 20 years. And what we found is that I can go back and remember when I was a kid and when I lived in Asia for a while, the different way people were living. Some were better, some were worse, but not hardly anybody had air conditioning when I was a kid. Very rare to go to some place and have it. And in a private home, wow, they must be rich. We had one car growing up, and I thought times were really good when the family got a second car. It happened not long before Warren was driving. So, yeah, we need that car so I can take one of the cars. And today, it's thought of in different ways. I know there was a period of time when just everybody had a car. And now we find out there's a lot of people who say here in the United States that they don't need a car. They'd rather travel without that. I have rich friends that don't own a car here in Las Vegas, which is definitely a car city. It's not like we have a subway system or something. And then, of course, learned about other places in the world where they never thought of getting a driver's license, driving their own car, because they had good mass transportation. But overall, we have more cars, more people able to use them, more ways of using them. The rideshare phenomena has completely changed how we do that. It's changing some other things. But what we don't see is how the technology has made everybody's lives better. Hardly ever saw a color TV when I was a kid. And then we went through a period of time when it seemed like everybody I knew had a color TV, and Dad said he didn't like the colors on them, so he wasn't going to color TV. I translate that today as Dad saying, I'm not going to spend all that money for some color that doesn't look like real life. Then we got a color TV, and suddenly Dad liked watching TV. But our lives were better at that time. Today, I can be in any room of the house, and my phone and my iPad and the computer screens and the TVs always have something to stream, and I don't have to go to another room to decide to watch something on YouTube. And it's become very abundant. Some of that is personal abundance. Yes, I have more money than when I was a kid, but that's the big part of it is that people I see that are considered poor in my neighborhood also have things like this. The number of people on the internet grew and grew, and life got better. We were able to get to more things, get access to more information, do more shopping, collaborate with other people. That's all the growth that I've seen. And it's just getting started with what AI is going to do. So, economists that I pay attention to are saying that it's very natural that over the next several years, growth is going to be 7% a year. I know 7% doesn't sound like it's a huge, it doubled last year. No, 7% means that if you do it 7% and next year that's the base and do 7% again, you double pretty quickly. When you get to 10%, it's wow, nothing we ever saw in economics. And I've been doing some study, and I think I was using Grok this time, having a discussion about what could happen if we were able to have a significantly higher GDP. And you know what? All the problems in the world start to go away. And isn't that what we really want out of technology? That more people can see what they want, interact with who they want, go where they want, and learn whatever they want. And that's going to be possible thanks to the effects of AI. We often talk about exponential growth here, that if you're growing at, as AI has been over the last couple of years, it's growing in ability at 10x over 6 months. There's certain tests that they do like that. In fact, it's getting hard to measure because there were things that jumped from 57 to 65 to 85 to 91 to 98, and they need new tests. And those numbers are the kind of numbers you're getting in quarterly or month or biannually. They aren't numbers over several years. The ability are growing that fast. And the capacity to do this is only limited now by energy and the chips. And both of those are ramping up like never before. I just saw a chip yesterday that I believe it's from Google, and it's meant just for AI, for their internal AI system that they run. And it's going to do, let me see, that was 12 times as many transactions per second. So that instead of having a chip that did X, it's now going to be doing 12X just by changing out the chip. And those grow, they're a lot more power efficient, and we're coming up with a lot more ways to grow the energy we use. So we have to start thinking what would happen when we don't have jobs. And I did some calculations. These are all just write it on a napkin and throw it away thinking that I was doing. It's all done in ChatGPT or Grok, or whichever one I was using that day. And yeah, it's astronomical no matter how you look at it. I started doing the figures of what would happen if we did this and this. And it says you have to assume that if half of the jobs are replaced, this is what might happen. And okay, let's adjust that a little bit. Let's do that. What would happen if we took away 3/4 of the jobs? And this new way of contributing, the technology contributes to revenues as a partnership that allows us to work less. And when we see now that software engineers saying they're writing 2 and 3 times as much code, some of the big companies have more than enough software engineers now. It was just a couple of years we were saying everybody needs to learn how to code. And there's still some pockets of places where we need employees and seem to be needing them, at least until robots replace them. Plumbing, for instance, I just did some research on that and found out that in the United States, the need for plumbers is not being met. It can be a good paying job, and a lot of the jobs go unfilled because the people are not trained or ready to do plumbing. And that's something that'll may take a while till we get the robots replacing it. But again, more important is what is one I use. I have this conversation when I'm in a Uber of what will happen when the driver is replaced in the Uber, in the ride share. It means that the guy who owns the car will be sitting at home. And especially if I'm riding in a Tesla, I ask this question and they instantly get it. Yeah, my car could be making me money while I sleep because it could run 24 hours a day or minus whatever charging time it needs. It wouldn't be limited by getting worn out or fatigue or rules about how many hours you can work. And about the time they get that, and I said, and wouldn't you be able to? By the way, the other consideration is prices for the rides will come down because it costs a lot less to run a car without a driver. And then I say, yeah, but wouldn't you be able to have 5 cars, each one of them out making you money? And it's a magical thing. I see eyes light up. They start calculating in their brain as we're driving down the road. Wow, that's something. Once in a while, we end up stopping and talking about automation for a minute. But most of the time, I feel like I've done my job. I get them to think about this in a bigger way. And we all can be doing that. Whether or not we use robots and automatic vehicles, or we're able to use something to learn faster just by being able to go to a computer. I no longer search for stuff. I hardly look up and go log into a website to get anything. Today, most of the time I'm sitting in front of the computer is going to be asking questions and getting results inside my email, when I'm on a site working on a document, when I'm talking to my CRM about my customer relationship management and doing that, planning mailings for that. We've got now more and more AI, not just writing copy for me, which is a popular one they say, but actually helping me figure out what to do next and then outline some copy. Like today's podcast was outlined. Today it's Grok 3 and it gave me some of the ideas and putting this together to just introduce how AI is going to accelerate. By the way, the numbers I'm getting is just by itself 3% increase. When you add on what robots can do, when you add on what humans can do as they free up time, multiplying that, and then you don't need just one AI, it can be more. I think it's going to be a lot more than a 3% growth. Say going from, I think the United States is headed for 4% this year, and adjusted for inflation and tariffs and whatever like that. Those things change day to day, it seems. But the overall increase with the tech we have now seems to be the 4%. And smart people are telling me 7% is possible. At 7%, just about all of the big society problems are solved. I made a list of them. I've decided not to share that list. Again, this is just me taking notes and thinking about it. That may turn into something that I put out as a document or present here on a podcast. But right now, it's just like enthusing me that in about 10 minutes work, I came out with a possibility of a 14% increase if you did all 10 of them, and huge hurdles to getting some of the things done, getting rid of some government regulation. The interesting thing is, more than just getting rid of the muck that is in government bureaucracy, more than that, it's changing the response time for things because there are projects. Let's take housing. Right now, almost everywhere, if this isn't the situation where you live, let me know. I'd like to hear about a place where the housing is growing too fast. Outside of China, which has a unique problem there, but where they built cities that are empty. But for the most part, most of the world has a problem of not getting enough housing. And every time we look into it, we find out we wanted to do this, but we couldn't. Or we want to build housing for the people without housing. What do we call them? At any rate, people experiencing homelessness. That's it. And if you want to build that right now in San Francisco, the fee to the city is $300,000 a unit. I don't know what that works out for you, but to me, that's a lot of money. That should be building, to me, that sounds more like getting land and a house. But no, that's a high rise, that's per unit, and that's just the fee. That's not acquiring the land or the construction. Something's gone wrong there, and then things get held up. Projects that should take 90 days to approve are taking 90 years. Maybe that's a bit of exaggeration, but projects that aren't happening. If we were able to increase the speed or reduce the friction from projects like that happening, that's a great way to grow the economy because more people get a house, more people can get a steady source of income and can get more done. The world has so many problems left to fix, so many things to do. It's hard to remember that we're in abundance and that it's going to be much, much more abundant very soon. It's like a hockey stick, and we've gone to the curve and we're swooshing up, but we're just getting started on that upward trend. And if you pay attention, it'll blow your mind what's coming. The more I study it, the more I go like, how do people telling me about the news of the day not see this? It's not about whether or not the price of Bitcoin went up or down today. It's about how we're going to be using Bitcoin for a long time, and it's going to go up, as is everything else. And if somehow Bitcoin were to go away, there'd be something better from what we've learned from Bitcoin. I'm not predicting that. I'm just using that as a theoretical example. And take that attitude, start looking at what would happen if we could reduce friction. If you're finding yourself in a place where you see more friction than you're ever going to be able to overcome, tell me about it. Leave a comment, send me a tweet, find my email, although it's better if you do it at a place like a comment. And let's have the discussion. Let's open that up and let some other people see it. If I'm completely wrong, tell me about it and tell me where I can learn how I'm wrong. But if you think about having 10% more for everyone, some of that is going to wind up helping you and your family, and it's going to help a lot of people that don't have anything if we make sure we don't hold them back from getting what they want. And we solve those kind of problems. And when we see one, we go ahead and fix it and say, how can technology eliminate this permit process that takes 10 years and environmental studies and everything takes just years and boards have to approve things? What if we change that to a way, the same project with the same outcome, still caring about the environment or still caring about whatever special interests have something in it, but make sure we get it done out in the open using AI and other technologies, find out that we can do, instead of 10 years, we can do it in 6 months. And if we cut all that out, every project, everything that's happening, every societal good speeds up. So think about what else you can do and let me know. Does it make any sense to you? I'll be here next time and I'll be looking for you in the comments. We are Emerging Technologies with Warren. Follow me on social media. Let's have a discussion wherever you can. I want to read what you have to say about this. You can subscribe. That's good for the show. Thank you very much.